So Matt Reeves' long-awaited Batman movie starring Robert Pattinson has finally been released. I've been looking forward to it, as well as many of you guys, and I'm not gonna lie, I've seen it twice. And I'm pretty sure you've already seen the trailers and get the general idea what the movie is about, but if you don't, here's the gist of it. Robert Pattinson plays a young Bruce Wayne who's been fighting crime as Batman for 2 years, but then a string of murders start happening against political figures and government officials, with clues and messages being left at the crime scene for Batman, from a killer called himself the Riddler. So now Batman must work with Gordon to piece together the puzzle to see how all these murders are connected and to catch the Riddler. So that's the setup. And I like this film. I think it's good, and parts of it are even great. And I like a lot of the ideas and concepts that it brings up and mentions. But before I get into the actual review, I want to let you guys know now that I'm going to be breaking this video up into 2 sections. A spoiler-free section, a spoiler section, and then finally my conclusion at the end. I'll leave some timestamps down below so you can skip to the part you want to listen to. Now with that out of the way, let's keep it spoiler-free and talk about what I liked. So first and foremost, I love the look and feel of this movie. It has a dark and gritty aesthetic with a very somber feeling. It's similar to like film noir, which works because it's going for a slower paced mystery thriller approach and really focusing on Batman's detective side. Easily one of my favorite looking Batman movies, as well as Gotham City itself. You really feel like Gotham is a rundown, crime-infested cesspool. Everything looks dirty and grimy, and I enjoy how well fleshed out and lived in this world feels. You got players who are already established like the Penguin, Falcone, you hear mentions of Salvatore Maroni. The world feels lived in, and I was hooked from the jump. Also, I love the uses of the colors red and yellow throughout the whole movie. It gave a lot of scenes some very distinct looks. And on top of that, I like the creative camera work. There are a few POV shots from certain characters' perspectives that are really well done. And when the action happens, it's clear and easy to see. No shaky cam, so you can tell what's going on. And there's some great looking shots in general. There are several moments that made me go, yeah, that would look pretty cool as a poster. Speaking of looks, I do like the Batsuit, even though it does remind me of the Daredevil suit. While not my favorite, I think it does look good. Same with Catwoman's outfit. I think it has that homemade feel to it, like she actually made the suit herself, and it works. Simple and effective. And of course, the makeup on Colin Farrell is fucking great. He looks unrecognizable. So really, nothing looks bad at all. Very good production value and set design. So stylistically and visually, I really like this movie. It's one of my favorite looking Batman movies, and I like the world that was introduced here. Now, there is action, and when it happens, it's pretty good. Although the trailers did show off most of them, but of course, they're longer in the movie. But they are pretty well done, and I do like them. But the action isn't the main focus here. It's more interested in the detective side of Batman. So you mainly see him observing crime scenes, analyzing clues, and bounce ideas back and forth with Gordon and Alfred trying to find the connection and crack the code and the riddles. So with it taking that route, it has a much slower paced story, and for the most part, I thought it handled the mystery and investigation pretty well for most of the movie. There are a few hiccups, but I'll get more into that in a bit. But I did really like the slower paced investigation approach. Now, performance-wise, I think everyone did a good job. Not gonna lie though, my favorites were Paul Dano as the Riddler, whom you all know I'm a stunt double for, and Colin Farrell as the Penguin. The Riddler's design here is very much inspired by the Zodiac Killer, and I like it. It's creepy, it's weird, it's unsettling, and most of the POV shots are from his perspective, and they make you feel very uneasy. And a very nice touch is that a few times when he's on screen, a certain music cue plays, and it kind of makes it feel like a horror movie in these moments. I really like it. In general, I think the Riddler was great in this movie, and all of his scenes were my favorites. All the riddles, the clues, the cell phone footage, and crime scene sections, and basically everything revolving around him were some of the best parts. Now, on the flip side, the Penguin was just a lot of fun. He was the most charismatic character, and you could tell that Colin Farrell was just having a good time. He was playing more into the mischievous side of the character, and he never overreached into the too hammy or cheesy territory. He was kind of riding the line a bit, but every time he was on screen, he was just great. And like I said, the makeup was awesome. Now, Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon was also good. I like seeing him and Batman side by side in the crime scene, or meeting and talking and working the case, having a back and forth discussion about what they found out and what to do next. I like seeing that stuff. Now, as for Selena Kyle as Catwoman, I thought she was just fine. Not my favorite character, and I'll touch more of that in the spoiler section. She wasn't bad per se, just things about her character I didn't find that interesting, which I'll touch on later. And of course, there's Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne / Batman, and I liked him. I thought he was very good. This is a young, very angry Batman, and I like that we get to see him in the Batsuit for like most of the movie. And a nice touch is that he uses fear to get advantage over the criminals, not only being absolutely merciless when he's fighting them, but something small like having deep, heavy footsteps and slowly emerging from the shadows, like he's in a monster movie, was a very nice touch. And they take an interesting approach with Bruce Wayne that I do like. In an interview, Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves mentioned that this is a Bruce Wayne who doesn't yet know how to put on a different persona for the public. He hasn't learned how to separate Bruce from the Batman. And you see that in the movie. He's just as broody as Bruce Wayne as he is as Batman. And he's much more interested in trying to do as much as he can as Batman, and isn't very much interested in the business, corporate, or political side of things. And I've seen people point this out as a negative, not seeing that personality shift between the two. But I think that was kind of the point. In this movie, he kind of learns a few things, one of which being what the Batman is and what it represents, and the impact that it can have on people. So I believe whenever they make a sequel sequel because, let's be honest, they're gonna make a sequel. We'll finally get that distinction between the public image of Bruce Wayne, the real Bruce Wayne, and Batman. He's also still fairly young and angry, and hasn't quite looked at the big picture, or really thought about the power he has as Bruce Wayne. He thinks at this moment, being Batman is the only way to make a difference. And this is touched on throughout the movie, but it really drives it home during the third act. So all the main players were good, and they played their roles well. No complaints really. I thought everyone did a good job. And a shout out to John Turturro as Carmine Falcone. He was great here, and that surprised me because I'm used to seeing him in more comedic roles. So seeing him play such a serious character was a good change of pace, and I thought he did a good job. And the last thing I want to praise is the score. Michael Giacchino did a great job. The music gives you a very somber, dreary feeling, but there are also several tracks that at the same time give you moments of triumph and epicness. The main theme that you heard in the trailers is awesome, and the last time I really liked the score this much was in BVS. I think Beautiful Eye is still my favorite theme, but this is right up there. You also hear different renditions of that throughout the movie, and so that was really cool. And again, like I already mentioned, I like that horror movie track that plays a few times when Riddler is on screen. Overall, the music is good. So there's a lot of good stuff here, but let's move on to the things that weren't that great. This part will be short because there isn't much that I didn't like, but there are a few things, so let's get into these. First is the relationship between Catwoman and Batman. I wasn't feeling it. They really didn't have that great on-screen chemistry, and I didn't get the impression that these two had any form of physical attraction to each other. I think they're both fine in their respective roles, but I couldn't see these two getting together or have sexual tension, so the whole Bat and the Cat relationship thing fell flat for me. The other complaint I have are a few plot points that come up around the halfway point. Like I said, this is a slower paced movie, and the runtime is around 2 hours and 50 minutes, minus a few because of credits. And the plot gets revealed to you slowly, so it's important to keep the viewer invested. And for the first hour or so, I was hooked. But then it introduced a few plot points at around this time that were underwhelming or not explored to its fullest. I'll go over this more in the spoiler section, but I'll put it like this. A great first hour and a half that really kept me invested, then just a decent middle section that wasn't as interesting as the hour and a half prior, and then it starts to pick up steam again and has a pretty good climax and ending. It's just right in the middle where I feel like it drags a little bit because I didn't find the plot points that interesting, or overall very underwhelming because they weren't explored enough. In my spoiler section, I'll go in more detail about this. But that's really it. Nothing else I can complain about. So now it's time to move on to the spoiler section, where I'll talk about a few specific things that I either liked or I didn't. So there's your spoiler warning. You ready? Let's go. So circling back to the few negative things I just mentioned, I want to elaborate on that some more. So in the middle of the movie, there are two things that are revealed that felt tacked on, a little unnecessary, and overall just underwhelming. First is the reveal that Selina's father is Falcone, and she's really upset about him being responsible for her friend's death, as well as basically disowning her and her mother as a child. So in this movie, that's her motivation and goal. Find out what happened to her friend, and make whoever did it pay. And I didn't find it all that interesting. Didn't care for it, and honestly at around the halfway point when she sets out to kill Falcone, I wasn't invested. And I feel like making Falcone her father was just a way to raise the stakes a little bit and throw a curveball at you. But honestly, it feels tacked on and doesn't really change much. So I didn't really care about her goal or motivation. And when you mix that with the lack of chemistry between her and Bruce, it just leaves me feeling very so-so about the character. I don't hate her, just didn't care for her in the way I think was intended. Another plot point that felt underwhelming was Bruce finding out that his father, Thomas Wayne, asked Falcone for help when trying to cover up information that a reporter had about his wife, which led to Falcone killing the reporter. So Bruce is shocked by the discovery because it shattered the perception he had about his father, and maybe he wasn't as great as a man as he thought. So he talks to Falcone to see if it's true, and he basically tells him that it is. And he informs him that Maroni got wind of this and decided to have Bruce's parents killed, so that Falcone couldn't have sway over Thomas Wayne, since he was about to be mayor of the city. And when this was first revealed, I thought this was a pretty interesting change-up. But then after about 15 minutes, it's revealed by Alfred that that's not actually the case, and that Falcone twisted the story, and that more than likely, Falcone is actually responsible for the death of Bruce's parents. This whole plot point felt underbaked, because it presents something interesting, but doesn't actually explore it that much. And during the time these two plot points are happening, the Riddler is just gone from the movie, and waiting for Batman to figure out the riddle from earlier, before finally coming back in after all this stuff is sorted out, and then he becomes the main focus again. So this section isn't as gripping or interesting to me as the first hour and a half. It's like after the Penguin chase scene, all this stuff starts happening, and I don't think it was as engaging as the stuff that came before it. But that's all I gotta say in terms of complaints. Now let's speak more in depth about shit that I liked. So like I mentioned, Bruce is very angry and young here, and doesn't yet understand what impact he's having on people. And during the third act, after he talks to the Riddler and stops his followers, he realizes that his presence might be doing more harm than good, which I liked seeing because this has always been a topic people bring up. If Batman didn't dress up and use his gadgets to beat and catch criminals, would supervillains like the Riddler or the Joker be emerging? Because in the movie, Riddler saw what Batman was doing and decided just to take it to the next level. He was inspired by him. And this is echoed with Riddler's followers, when one of them was asked who he was, and he answered, "I'm vengeance." This is when it clicked with Bruce that he needs to change what Batman is and what the symbol represents. Instead of anger and vengeance, he instead needs to inspire hope for a better future for the city. I like that they went the route of, if Batman exists, would it actually bring bigger threats to the city? It was cool to see that. Now while I'm at it, let's talk about the Riddler a bit more. I do really like all the scenes that he's he's in, especially when he's talking to Batman behind the glass. I really liked his mannerisms throughout the whole movie. He was clearly a little out there, but was always thinking and planning far ahead. And I like the moments where he got angry when he was interrupted and starts yelling to the point where you can't understand him. I like the giddy look on his face when he gets caught, and when he starts talking to Batman. And I also like when he started whining when things didn't go the way he planned, with Batman not seeing them as partners or equals. I thought it was all great. I also love that he knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and that they both actually share a connection. They're both orphans, but one was a billionaire, while the other was forced to live in an orphanage with bad living conditions. But the orphanage itself was donated by the Wayne Foundation, and he feels left behind by society after Thomas Wayne was killed, because after that, all the promises of a better future disappeared. And he sees Batman taking on criminals and thinks, yeah, you're right, let's cause some real change here, and decides to take it to the next level and starts killing some really corrupt officials.
I fucking love that.
And the last thing I'll mention is the scene in Arkham where the Riddler is talking to an unnamed inmate who befriends him, and they start laughing together. Matt Reeves already confirmed that this is the Joker, and he's already had run-ins with the Batman, which is why he's there. But he's not the Joker we know yet. Right now he's just a serial killer, but pretty soon we'll see him transform into the Joker. Matt Reeves also confirmed that he will be constantly smiling because he does have a condition, the same one as the character from the 1928 film The Man Who Laughs, which was the original inspiration for the Joker. And I thought the scene was pretty cool. Nothing more to say really. It was a nice addition and set up for bigger things in the future. So in the end, I enjoyed the movie. I think the overall package is good, with some really great moments. I like the slower paced mystery investigation story, even though I feel the middle section isn't as gripping as the first part of the movie, but the climax was good, so it all evens out for me. Visually, it's one of my favorite looking Batman movies, as well as Gotham City itself. Matt Reeves continues to have a pretty spotless filmography, and really has been on a roll with his 2 Planet 8 movies, and now this. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of the world that he's set up here. I know there's a spin-off show focusing on Gotham PD in the works, as well as one focusing on the Penguin, so that's gonna be interesting. Now it's time to update my rankings. I think I would put it around number 3, right under BVS in The Dark Knight. I'm curious how many people would see that as a hot take. Also, I went with a friend of mine, and he said something that I thought was pretty interesting. He said, this is the most Batman-feeling Batman movie we've ever gotten, in terms of the world, the villains, the detective aspect of it, as well as the relationship with Gordon. So I'm curious, what do you guys think about that? Tell me down below. And of course, if you've seen The Batman, leave a comment and let me know what you think about it. And where would you rank it in your list? And if you enjoyed the video, go and drop a like on it. Thanks for watching.
Let's make some fun of some depressed white people.
Gonna cry? Gonna piss your pants maybe? Literally maybe shit and cum?